Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bite Podcast with Raven and Ree.
I'm Raven.
And I'm Ree. And today is episode 11 of our Midnight Sun series. It is the fourth installment, but it's our 11th episode in total.
Yes, you will be getting videos from us every Monday up until, I think, like the next 3 Mondays. 3 or 4.
So all 4 installments, like this is the 4th installment, so if you want to go watch the other 3 so you can be caught up, then they're on our YouTube and Spotify. If you have not read Midnight Sun, then you probably shouldn't be watching this because this is, we're going to be spoiling everything. So we are going to do, and we're going to dive into, discuss, give our thoughts on chapter 16 through 20.
Yes, and this is we've already done the first half of the book, so now we're at, like, the second half, which is where all the things
juicy
happen.
Stuff.
Yeah, all the things. So chapter 16 was kind of short for me. I didn't even, like, write that many notes for it, because it's a pretty short chapter. But this is a chapter where they start going to the meadow. It's like the lead up to the meadow.
Yeah.
We get the iconic, like, they're both wearing matching outfits, and I think it's like they're both wearing like a tan sweater and like jeans or something like that, and they're like, oh my god, they're matching,
and Bella's a little uneasy because she's like, there's no trail, and Bella's clumsy, so she'll trip over any branch that's sticking out, and he's like, I won't let you get lost, but that's not what she's worried about. She's worried about falling on her face. And
on chapter or page 334, he tells her, because I think he was like upset that she didn't tell Charlie wasn't home, so like he could easily, like, you know, kill her if she wouldn't come home, blah blah blah. And she was just like, oh, like, I didn't say anything because she was worried about the trouble that she would cause Edward. He was like, you're worried about the trouble you might cause me if you don't come home.
Yeah. Edward's just like, man, she really is unlike any human I've ever met.
Yeah. I feel like if I was Bella, I would tell my mom, I would tell my mom everything in high school, so I was like, if wherever I was going, like, there was no secrets at all, so I was like, I would be polar opposite, like, I am going with Edward today, Dad.
Yeah, I don't know if I would tell my parents, because my parents were never strict, but usually if I wanted to go out with someone and they haven't met them yet, they'd want to meet them. So I don't know if I'd want them to meet, like, right then and there.
Yeah, that's a problem. But yeah, so there wasn't a lot to this. You know, they were just talking. He was like, I won't let you get lost. And then he asked her if she wants to go home. But he was very clear, like, if she wanted to leave me, if she wanted to walk away now, I would let her go. I would watch her disappear and endure it. I wasn't quite sure how, but I would find a way. And I think it's also funny that she drove there. She was like, I'm driving. You're not going to drive. So, yeah, there's not a lot to this chapter, really. I mean, they're just talking. This is not the first time she gets on his back, right? It's like when they come back from the meadow.
Yeah, when they come back.
Yeah, so then they're just walking. He's asking her more questions. He asked her questions about her favorite teacher. Or no, she asked him a question about his favorite teacher too. And he was like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
And then, talk just some more little things. They kind of talk a little bit about Renee briefly. And
yeah, there's not like a lot to this episode. And then to this episode, lol, to this chapter.
To this chapter.
It's
no, but she starts complaining. She's like, "Are we there yet?"
Yeah.
And
so they're walking. He's like, I can see the fort, like, he can see the meadow, but she's like, where? He also does another Hades Persephone little shout out. He says, she walked almost reverently into the golden light. It gilded her hair and made her fair skin glow. Her fingers trailed over the taller flowers, and I was reminded again of Persephone, springtime personified.
Yes!
So cute. That's such a, like, that was kind of like a rhyme.
This, and the, like, last line on that page really just hits me in the heart, because he thinks, I wanted to be human so badly in that moment that it nearly crippled me, but I was not human, and that time had come for perfect discipline.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my god.
And at the end of this chapter, we get him, like, about to step into the sunlight, which is kind of like cliffhanger, but then you go to chapter 17. It's called Confessions, and then boom. He feels the warm sun, and I had wrote down here, I was like, meadow scene, I put in, like, caps. And then because she yelled his name, and she thought that she would be running away, but she was coming towards him, because I was like, did she think that he was going to combust or something?
Yeah.
And this whole time, on 343, she told Edward, like, I've never seen anything more beautiful, never imagined something so beautiful could exist. Because she's seeing his, like, diamond skin. And so Bella's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And he's like, this is disgusting. Like how could you even look at me? Like it's so, because she put, she said, amazing. He said, you aren't repulsed by my flagrant lack of humanity. And she was like, not repulsed. And he's like, you should be. And I'm like, Edward, you're such a moper. Stop being such a moper.
Exactly. Like, why do you gotta ruin everyone's fun? Just shut up.
And then, so then on this part, 344, she, like, looks up at him, kind of, and her skin, you know, like, her jugular vein was visible, and he was like, he held his hand up, he was just like this.
That's the way I picture that scene.
Like, I need a moment. That's what he told her, too. He told her, I need some time. And she's like, okay. At some point, he ends up sitting down in the grass, and I think she sat down right next to him, and this part was so funny, because he's just, like, sitting there, he's, like, listening. We get a little nod to one of the previous, I think is the previous chapter 16, the knot. He said, was this Alice's knot? So I was like, okay, well, there's that. And then he starts listening to, like, all of the, everything around him, the birds, all that. He said the time seemed to slow. On 345 is what he said. Time seemed to slow with her pulse. Which I was like, that's like, beautiful, but also, like, what? You know?
Yeah.
And then, on the next page, I was like, are you kidding me? Because what did he say? He said, where is it? Oh, of course I would write I think it's here. He said something like 2,364 heartbeats later.
I was like, are you serious?
He's like counting how many heartbeats are in a minute. Let me see. How many minutes pass?
I can't even think that. I can't do that math.
So let's say that so it says that a lower heart rate at rest implies more efficient heart function. So let's just say Bella's like the 60, right? 2,000. Yeah. I'm going to do 2,364 divided by 60 heartbeats per minute is 39 minutes. So almost 40 minutes per...
I can't with this
Edward,
man.
What?
Edward, what are you on?
40 minutes past 2,364 heartbeats later, which is equals to 39 minutes. Were they sitting there alone
of silence.
in silence in the meadow? That's like literally almost an entire hour.
You know,
oh my goodness.
Now I understand why he's never had a date before in his life. Because he doesn't know what to do on a date.
Yeah, because he just sat there for 40 minutes. So then he ends up laying down, and she just sighed. She was just like...
You need to just put the title of this episode, They Sat There for How Long?
They sat there for how long? No, I'm gonna title it 2,364 heartbeats later. That's gonna be the
Yes.
So then he's just like sitting there, actually laying there, like listening to her. And then I'm like, I had wrote here, I was like, Edward is like a math genius or something. Because he starts like counting the insects in the area. That's what he was spending with his 40 minutes. Like,
I can't
actually, no, this is past the 40 minutes. Because it was only up into the 40 minutes where he decided to lay back in the grass. So then more time passes by. And in that time that passed by, so who knows how many more minutes passed, but he's counting in the amount of insects in the area of the meadow. So there was 4,913. And then he goes, which is roughly 11,035 square feet. And then he starts averaging how many insects would exist on 1,400 square miles of the Olympic National Park. God. Edward Cullen, are you kidding me? You brought this girl here so you could sit there and do math?
Exactly.
And then he said, what if insect populations dropped 1% for each 10 feet of elevation? Edward Cullen.
Edward, no one gives a shit.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Oh my goodness. And then he's just like this like weird, like, he's like a topographic person, because he said that he had brought up a map in his head of a topographic map of the park and started computing the numbers. How much time? That's a long time.
And of course, Bella doesn't say. She just said time passed and we were sitting there. Whereas we get an insight, really, of what Homeboy was doing.
I want to say that there was probably almost an entire hour that passed where they did not talk at all.
And literally, Bella's probably just thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, I wonder what his past was like. I wonder what his family stories, their history. Why did it take so long for him to ever, like, have feelings for someone? Whereas this guy is just thinking about the insect population.
Maybe, Edward, you should be more worried about the lion population in Fort Washington.
Because you keep eating all of them.
Eating them. Fuck the insects. I'm worried about the lions. But then, finally, I think Edward starts, like, singing to himself a little bit. And
yeah. I think he was singing her lullaby that he wrote.
Yeah, and she's like, did you say something? That's when they finally start talking. And then she said, just singing to himself. And then 3:47 is the first time that she, like, moves her hand a little closer. And she, like, starts stroking his arm, like, his hand, like, whatever. And he said something about, it says, one soft, warm fingertip traced slowly across the back of my hand. It was very gentle touch, but the response in my skin was electric, a different kind of burning than in my throat, and even more distracting. So, I thought that was just beautiful.
I did too. I love that part.
And then again, he says, I don't scare you, on 3:48. Edward, she's stroking your hand, and you're asking her if she's afraid of you. Come on, dude. Yeah. There's so many other times that Edward has been, like, very smooth, but in this one moment, he's like, do you want to leave?
It just...
Jeez. So then she ends up moving his hand to her face, which I was like...
I'm like, oh, okay, Bella.
I know, making the move. And then she tells him, tell me what you're thinking. It's so...
God, I forgot how long this chapter was.
He told her, tell me what you're thinking. It's so strange for me not knowing. And they just start talking. So finally they're not, like, silent, right?
Yeah.
So then, something had happened here where...
She got a little too close where, I think their faces were nearly touching, and that's when, like, he pushed himself away, because he, like, I think it was in that moment that could have been the vision that came true of Ella being there, because they got too close, and he pushes away, and then that's when we get the famous, I'm the world's best predator, and then everything about you invites me in, and the whole, as if you can outrun me.
Yeah. And she just apologized because she was like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. And he was like, What? Like...
and this is kind of where he was in this moment with how like her heart was beating and all that. He had for a moment he was getting what he wanted, which was her being afraid of him. But then seeing how she was afraid, he immediately like, no, I don't want that. I don't want her to be afraid of me. Like, don't leave me. All this. It's so back and forth with him.
Yeah. But then he ends up coming back to her, and he walks slowly back to her. He apologizes to her. Her heart was beating fast because she's terrified of this guy who's throwing trees and shit.
Yeah. Could you imagine on your first date, he just throws a tree?
Throws a tree branch, like, oh my goodness.
Like, how romantic.
And it even said there, it, like, cracked, like, it sounded like thunder or something like that because of how, like, you know, just, he's a vampire, he's strong.
Yeah.
So then,
and then he...
it says here, the scent of her fear saturated the air, tangy and metallic.
Yeah. And he's all like, don't be afraid, I won't hurt you, all this. And then on page 350, it starts on 354, but then it goes, you know, more in on 355. It's the memory of when he came back to Carlisle and Esme.
Yeah.
And he remembers that was, like, the last time that he can remember where he, like, begged for forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then she,
like,
before that, she had actually started doing the same thing, that she was, like, tracing her hand on her finger on his hand again.
Yeah.
And that's when we get into the memory, Ed. Which was, like, so sad. Poor Esme. But she was so excited to have him back.
Yeah.
And then they're pretty normal. For, like, they're pretty normal for the most part. Is this where they kiss for the first time?
No, they kiss
afterward.
He basically in the next couple pages he talks about the vampires and the food analogies, and then he talks kind of about a little bit about the history between the Cullens, but he doesn't want to go in depth, and he tells her about Emmett, I think, how Emmett was, like, the way Bella is to Edward, Emmett had that happen to him twice, and he was kind of worried, like, did she judge Emmett? And then with Jasper, he talked about, he wasn't sure if Jasper had ever come across someone, because Jasper surely wouldn't have been able to stop himself, being how he's the one that doesn't have the most control of the Cullens.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's...
So here at the bottom, at 361, he was like, even the strongest of us fall off the wagon, don't we? And then she said, what are you asking, my permission? Like, to drink her blood? And he was like, okay, well, then I found the limit.
Oh, yeah, and I think this is when, I think it's in this that he admits to he wanted to kill her several times.
Mm-hmm.
And she still is not, like, she's kind of she's like, she's not afraid, but she was nervous hearing that about how he wanted to kill her and the ways he was going to and how he was, like, what he planned to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm an idiot, and he's like, you are an idiot. It was just, like, playful, and then we get the whole, and so the lion fell in love with the lamb on 367.
Yes, iconic. I have that tattooed on my leg.
Yes, and basically the rest of it, he still wants to kiss her. He's still getting these over urges to kiss her, but he doesn't actually kiss her until after they leave the meadow, and it's like he has her right on his back, and she's so nauseous and she falls to the ground, and then that's when he's like, I want to try something. Yeah. And as she's sitting on the ground, he goes over to her and he...
So before they leave, on page 369, okay. So I think they hadn't left the meadow yet because it said here, I wanted to kiss her so much. I wanted so much to kiss her then. Her soft, curving lips, ever so slightly parted, mesmerized me and drew me forward. But though these new human emotions now seemed so much stronger than anything else, I didn't fully trust myself, and I knew I needed one more test. I thought I'd passed through Alice's knot, but I still felt something was lacking. I realized one more. This part, I caught myself like, oh my god! It was it's like the bottom, and it's where it says, so he got closer, and she told her, be very still. And it says, slowly I leaned close, watching her expression. For any hint that this was unwelcome to her, I found none. Finally, I let my head dip forward and turn it to lean my cheek against the base of her throat. The heat of her warm life pulsed through her fragile skin and into the cold stone of my body. That pulse leaped beneath my touch. I kept my breathing steady as a machine, in and out, controlled. I waited, judging every minuscule happening inside my body. Perhaps I waited longer than necessary, but it was a very pleasant place to linger. Oh, I love that.
I love that.
Even, I think this is in one of the later chapters, where he's dropping Bella off at home, or maybe it's one of these. He's dropping Bella off at home, and Charlie's not there because Billy wanted to go over to warn Bella about Edward, and they're in the truck. I think maybe it's after he drops her off from here, and they're in the truck, and Edward kisses her on the neck. In front of Billy. I'm like, oh my god. I was reading it. I was like, babe, look at the drama. That's Edward, such a showstopper here. And then poor Jacob was like, oh.
Oh god, it's and then oh my god, and then it's on 376 when, he after they sped through the forest and she's a little nauseous. He's like, it wasn't too late. My system was electrified again as I thought of it. A true kiss.
Yeah. Okay, I love this. Where is it? Because we have to read it because it's just so beautiful. So, I rolled to my knees facing her. I felt nervous and restless and impatient and unsure. The yearning to be closer to her reminded me of the thirst that used to control me. This, too, was demanding, impossible to ignore. Her breath was hot against my face. I leaned closer. Open your eyes, Bella. She complied slowly, looking up at me through her dense lashes for a moment before lifting her chin so that our faces were aligned. I was thinking while I was running. My voice trailed off. This was not the most romantic beginning. Her eyes narrowed. About not hitting the trees, I hope. Love Bella. Even in her nauseous state, she's making jokes. I chuckled as she tried to hold back a grin. Silly Bella. Running is second nature to me. It's not something I have to think about. She said, show off. She repeated with more emphasis this time. We were off topic. It was surprising that this was even possible close as our faces were. I smiled and redirected. No, I was thinking that there was something I wanted to try. I put my hand slightly on either side of her face, leaving her plenty of room to move away if this was unwelcome. Her breath caught and she automatically angled her head closer to mine. I used 1/8 of a second to recalibrate, testing every system in my body to be completely positive that nothing would take me off guard. My thirst was well under control, sublimated to the very bottom of my physical needs. I regulated the pressure in my hands, in my arms, the way my torso curved toward her, so that my touch would be lighter against her skin than the breeze. Though I was sure the precaution was unnecessary, I held my breath. There was no such thing as too careful, after all. Her eyelids shut. I closed the tiny distance between us and pressed my lips softly against hers. And this is perfect because I have a TikTok in my giraffes, where it's the audio is I will kiss you softly, and I was gonna put Edward because that's perfect. What strange alchemy was this? That the touch of lips should be so much more than the touch of fingers. It made no logical sense that the simple contact between this specific area of skin should be so much more powerful than anything I'd yet experienced. I felt as if a new sun was bursting into being where our mouths met, and my whole body was filled to a shattered point with the brilliant light of it. Oh my goodness. Just the way he describes these things are just so beautiful.
I know.
And then it says she gasped in her reaction, her lips parting against mine, the fever of her breath burning my skin. her arms wound around my neck, her fingers twisted into my hair. Wow, Bella was just like, Bella was about it.
Bella was like, this is her first kiss, and she's like, I'm not gonna make it if it's my last, I'm gonna make it worthwhile.
she like has her arms around her neck, their fingers are in the hair. She used that leverage to crush her lips more tightly to mine. Her lips felt warmer than before as a fresh blood flowed into them. They opened wider, an invitation. And then that's when he like separated from her, right?
Yeah.
He was like, no. And then she said, oops.
I love
He was like, that's an understatement. What did she say? She said, should I? Oh, that she tried to move back. And he was like, it's tolerable, just wait. So she's just there, like, chilling. Oh, this part, I was like, there, like, oh, I'm swooning. I love it so much. How cute of them.
And then it just...
There was even, I don't know, oh, look, he tells her, are you still faint from the run? Or was it my kissing expertise? I laughed out loud. He LOL'd.
Oh.
He LOL'd.
Oh my god, I love it.
Stephenie Meyer should have just put, I LOL'd. Instead, I laughed out loud. Oh my goodness.
Stephenie, if Renesmee does not say LOL in her point of view, I'm a riot. Yeah. You can't give us Teen Gen Z Nessie and then not have her know the lingo.
Yeah, honestly. So then, so he was like, you don't let your friends drive drunk. And she was like, drunk. And he was like, you're intoxicated by my very presence. Oh my goodness, Edward Cullen, what? Oh, I can't.
And then she's like, take it easy. My truck is a senior citizen. This was my favorite in Twilight also because their bickering is just...
I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was later, but he had said something like, to the lines of like, oh, or when you attacked me or something like that. Like, I forgot when it was.
Oh, wait, I think it's in the next... I don't know, it's somewhere. Yeah. I think it's in Mind Over Matter, but I'm not exactly sure. Which, Mind Over Matter is an iconic chapter. I know whenever I ask people, like, what their favorite chapters are from Twilight, a lot of the times it's Blood Type and Mind Over Matter. Yeah. And Mind Over Matter is by far my favorite in Life and Death, which... For all you who don't know, maybe haven't heard of it, Life and Death is the gender-bent version of Twilight where Bella is a boy named Beau and Edward is a girl named Edith. And Mind Over Matter in that book was flawless. And because there was like a conversation in there that like I was not expecting. And I was like, oh, Stephenie, are you finally giving what we wanted?
Stephenie? Is she leaving her Mormon roots?
That's what I was wondering. I was like, oh, they're talking about sharks?
Oh, and then this one, Edward. I can't because, I don't know what had happened. It's like the way that this ends. So, first he says, for the first time in 100 years, I was grateful to be what I was. Every aspect of being a vampire, all but the danger to her, was suddenly acceptable to me because it was what had led me to live long enough to find Bella. Oh my god. BRB, I'm gonna go jump off a cliff. Oh, I can't.
This is what I was waiting for.
I know. This is what we needed and deserved. So, the way that he ends this, he says, he's talking about the old Edward, right? Like the one that couldn't really like resist and stuff like that. So he said, I leaned down and pressed my lips to the corner of her jaw, just above her pulsing artery. I let my lips brush softly along her jawline to her chin, and then kissed my way back to her ear, feeling the velvet give of her warm skin under the faint pressure. I returned slowly to her chin, so close to her lips. She shivered in my arms, reminding me that what was unprecedented warmth for me was icy winter to her. I loosened my hold, and he told her, Regardless, I whispered in her ear, I have better reflexes. Oh my goodness.
I hate him.
Cullen.
I hate him for making me feel like this.
Every time I read this, I just want to sing like, what a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty, mighty great man. That's all that my brain thinks about, because I'm like, oh my goodness. What a player. He's not real. Well, I guess he's just like a player for Bella, right? But I'm like, still.
And then we get into Mind Over Matter. Iconic chapter. And I think both this and Twilight, Life and Death, and all of it, and it's just, they're on their way back. And they're listening to Pledging My Love by Johnny Ace. That's such a good song. And
he sang to her. He sang the part "Always and Forever." I'll love only you. Oh my goodness, Edward. And then they start talking about music a little bit.
And yeah, and then because he's just so like 50s was good, better than the 60s or 70s, and then 80s was bearable. And I'm just all like, okay, we get it. You're from the 20s. You don't like anything a little more tech and high pitch. But then we get into more about him.
He tells her how he was dying and how he got turned.
Yeah.
In this one.
And then it's like how human memories fade. So it's like he still remember, he'll have a photographic eidetic memory about his vampire life, but anything before starts to fade. So I think that's
which makes me kind of sad, because like when Bella's like in a down the line, if Charlie doesn't get turned,
she'll forget him, she'll forget all of her friends,
like they'll just be like distant memories,
because so many years have passed. And I mean, I guess that's also the kind of like the same with people like us. Like, I know memories I used to remember 10 years ago from when I was a young child. I can't remember those memories anymore.
Yeah, and then every once in a while too, like I'll get like a random like, oh, I remember this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I just thought of that, but like people like that always happens.
Yeah.
But then that's just so sad, because imagine like 100 years down the line, and then like Renesmee asks her, because Renesmee will remember Charlie.
Yeah, she will.
And then we don't know if Renesmee can have children.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
So if like Renesmee has children and asks Bella about her dad, and she's just like, I don't remember that much, and it's just like, Charlie. Not Charlie.
I will literally cry and lose my shit.
If Charlie doesn't get turned, I'm like,
bye.
I'm gonna write a letter. I'm gonna write a letter to whom it may concern. I hate you.
I am in. It's like, this is slander, and I will not stand for it. I am suing for emotional distress.
We don't call ourselves Charlie's Angels for nothing.
Exactly.
By the way, go follow Charlie Swan's Angels on Instagram.
Oh my god. But
okay.
I think it was so funny reading about Edward's thoughts and him telling Bella about, dying of Spanish influenza, especially because right now we're in a pandemic, and especially when this book came out. It's like, all of the memes were insane. It was...
The Twilight pandemic memes, 100%.
Yeah. And
someone was even like, the Cullens should be in charge of vaccine distribution, because they would get everyone, like, vaccinated in no time.
Exactly.
So this is where Bella also starts trying to ask a little bit about how to turn into a vampire. And then she asks about Emmett and Rosalie, and I think this is also when he mentions about how Rosalie brought Emmett back and what happened to Emmett.
Yeah.
He was in was like mutilated by a bear. Yeah. And Rosalie saw him, and I think that she had saw him, and he reminded her of a baby, right?
Yeah, Emmett had reminded Rosalie, because Emmett's physical appearance kind of reminded of her best friend's young baby.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people kind of have a problem with this because it's all like, why was Rosalie attracted to a man who resembled her, like her best friend's infant child? Which I don't know how I feel about that. It kind of makes me a little just the way it's kind of interpreted. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I think this is also
that is weird. It's kind of like,
yeah,
I could understand saving him because he reminds you of your best friend's child, but like when she brought him back, like it kind of just seemed like she wanted like he said, like I think she had said something like "save him for me" or something like that.
Yeah, and I think this is where what kind of a lot of people have said is where when Carlisle had mentioned previously how Rosalie owes you. I think this is her where it comes in, where it's there. I guess before they would even bring in someone new to the family, they'd have like a discussion and like prepare. And the fact that Rosalie had brought Emmett without consulting in them and like begged to change, it kind of was like, you're bringing this person into the family. We don't know how they're going to be. We don't know them. We have to do all of this things where they can't be seen in public. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, whereas Edward could have like easily done the same thing,
Yeah.
But he didn't. Like he's like trying to go about it like a different way.
Yeah.
So I mean, then so he talks about how everything about how he also talks about how quickly Emmett like accustomed to the vampire life, and he was just how he said it at some point that Emmett was just like embraces life, like anything that comes his way. He's just like, okay, and I see that 100%, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, how cute. Oh. Also, and then he talks about Alice and Jasper going to them.
Yeah. I think so. One thing I want to point out, which I thought was which is definitely different from how Stephenie Meyer wrote Twilight, which, she always, in the Twilight series, especially with Rosalie's past, she never actually said the words of what happened to Rosalie. It's just alluded, and, like, you can kind of guess what happened. But on 386... when it says in the first years of Rosalie's second life, before she had disappeared on her several missions of revenge, her thoughts had given her away clearly and thoroughly. Like, she had already set in stone what she was going to do. Mm-hmm. Edward tells Carlisle, and Carlisle tries to talk to Rosalie, saying that she needs to let go of her past, but she would not forget, but maybe her pain could be lessened if, she just lets go. But it wouldn't. Like, they both kind of knew that it would be a better place without them, and then they actually she says the words, like, what they were, which I'm not going to say it on here just because, I don't want to say that word. I don't want to trigger anyone, but I was very surprised when I saw the word was there. I thought she was going to put something
the R word? Yeah.
So, I thought that was very...
that is something that, like, because they don't even...
Yeah.
That's not something that I would have expected.
Yeah. Because Stephenie always said that, like, her books never really have a lot of violence or dark... They may have some kind of dark themes, but she never will actually go into descriptions or, like, use that language. But then in this one, she certainly did. So I thought that was a very different, like, transition from how she wrote the Twilight Saga to this.
Yeah.
So.
Dang. Yeah, that I think that is something, maybe progress, possibly.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think this was her best work. Besides the host.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I really enjoyed this book. Then he also mentions how Rosalie loves to get married, and that she'll do it over and over again.
Yes.
I love that.
And then,
they talk about Alice and Jasper, how Alice and Jasper ended up coming to them, and they found them. Which is interesting because it's just funny how she saw them and, like, knows that they have, Edward had powers, but then she, like, just two people who weren't turned by Carlisle just came and were like, well, we have powers too. Welcome.
Yes. Oh, and like the way Alice and the way they met. First of all, Emmett and Jasper are already like getting ready to fight because you know that, and then Edward gets like, doesn't he get like tackled by Alice?
Oh yeah, she hugs him. She says, "Oh, Edward, at last, my brother, we're finally together." Edward's like,
Yeah, but then he sees her thoughts and he sees her power, and that's when he's like, "This is Alice, Emmett." I told him, still embracing my new sister. She's part of our family, and that's Jasper. You're going to love him. And I was like, oh my god. What?
I love that. So cute. And then she asked him about if there's any more of them. And she's like, well, when he starts telling them about the other vampires, he mentions Tanya. Edward.
Yeah.
That's messy of you, Edward.
Oh.
But yeah, so then he just talks about other vampires and something about, where is it? Oh, they talk about Alice's past a little bit, how she woke up alone. She didn't really like understand like what had happened. And then she was hungry, so she had to eat.
Yeah.
And this is where he goes inside her house for the first time. Well, not for the first time. For the first time with her knowing.
Yeah.
So she invites him in. They go inside, which is very like kind of like traditional vampire stuff, because you know how like you have to be invited to come inside, like the vampires. But like that, I mean, all the other times he wasn't invited, but this just time she like invited him in so he could go in.
And she's all like, you spied on me? And then he's like, what else is there to do at night? And I'm like, you are so creepy. Like, you don't even understand.
Yeah, and this is where he calls himself masochistic. Indeed.
Oh, God. That's cringe.
But she wasn't really mad about it. She was like, she said, are you angry? I think she was more angry that he heard her sleep talking, rather than him watching her.
Yeah. Because I think she was afraid that, like, what she says, like, what if she said, like, some embarrassing stuff, which, you know.
She said his name, so.
Yeah, to her, that's embarrassing, but to him, he finds that, aw, you think
also,
about
he
me.
tells her, like, he was like, you miss your mother, you worry about her, and when it rains, the sound makes you restless. And he's like, once you said, it's too green.
Oh, and then.
He tells her that he said her name. And then Charlie gets home. And so he's like, okay, well, peace out. But he goes up to her room, right?
Yeah, he goes to her. Well, he goes to her room, but she doesn't know that he went to the room. While she, you know, fixes Charlie a plate. And then they sit down and talk a bit. And then they're just talking about plans, because Charlie is kind of worried that she doesn't have like many friends and that she's not getting the experiences he wants her to. So he's kind of like, any boys catch your attention? And she's like, no. And
at this point, have they changed it all? Because what is he wearing? Because it says, and truly it would have been inconvenient to meet her father officially in my current state of dress or undress. It says it on 397. So did they change at some point, or is he? Because I know he was wearing like the cut off white shirt, right? Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, maybe because of he felt like he was not. Again, you know, he's from like the 20s, and back then, when you go meet the parents of whoever you're courting, you kind of dress like more presentable. So he probably thought that he was underdressed, like he wasn't dressed appropriately for.
Okay, so I'm like, Edward, like, are you getting undressed?
Like in Bella's room without her knowledge.
So then that's when Charlie is like asking her about, but he's suspicious. He was like, he was like, what are you doing there? Because he even comes and checks on her. But she goes into her room. Edward's there. She said, I think she had said something like, oh, he scared her a little bit. She was like scared that she saw him. They were sitting. Her truck is. So this is where, because Charlie was worried that Bella was doing something suspicious, so he went out to her car and like unclipped her like battery things or whatever, and
thinking Edward she was gonna sneak out.
Yeah, and then she has a minute to be human.
Yeah,
a little human minute.
And then he reads one of her favorite books.
Oh yeah, but like super quickly, right?
Oh yeah, because he can read like I think he said, or somewhere I thought he could read like up to 1,000 words per minute because he could just speed through it. He doesn't really need like a lot of time to read a book, so he's able to read that book in whole while she is having her human minute.
Yeah, so love him, love that. We love a fast reader. So then after her human minute, she comes back to the room, and then she's like, Charlie thinks I'm sneaking out, so she knows that he's like suspicious of her. And then I feel like this is such like an intimate scene. Like
I know. This is why it's my favorite chapter in this and in Life and Death, because it's very much intimate in Life and Death, which. And then we get the, on 403, we get the chapter title.
Mind Over Matter.
Heck yes!
So, what was happening? So, what are they doing here? She was like, much easier for you now to be close to me. Does it seem that way to you? And that's why he says mind over matter, right? Because she was like, why do you think that is? And he was just like, mind over matter.
Yeah, so they're just kind of like talking and sitting in their thoughts, just kind of talking about the day, and then I think it goes into, she eventually talks about, like, she asks him they kind of talk about what to go forth with their relationship and how would it work, and also because Bella, and I think Bella actually does kind of allude to alludes to sex, and he is kind of we're not like doesn't want to talk about that because it's like he could kill her, but it's kind of but he's not surprised that she would ask because she's a teenager, she is going to be experiencing all these different emotions. Yeah. And
what part did she ask that?
Because I think, let me see. I need to see, because I remember, I distinctly remember that, hold on.
Oh, I hear Charlie comes and checks on them, or on her, on Bella, and they hide, and she pretends to be asleep, and he was like, you're a terrible actress.
Yeah.
I do know they did talk about it. She kind of like alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, wait. Okay, I think it's 414. She said, he's like, was there a purpose for your curiosity? And she said, well, I did wonder about you and me someday.
Yeah.
And then he said, I don't think that he avoided the word sex, because she did, would be possible for us. And then he talks about how, like, you're very fragile, I can kill you by accident. And, yeah.
Yeah, he says if I was too hasty, if for 1 second I wasn't paying enough attention, I could reach out meaning to touch your face and crush your skull by mistake.
Yeah, so...
Poor Bella, she was like, dang.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
but then he assures her because I think he kind of thought that she was a little insecure that he wouldn't want her that way, and
mm-hmm.
then he said, um, I think he did assure her that he finds her attractive and he would lust for her.
Oh yeah, and she was like, I'm curious now though. Have you ever? Oh my god, what is this? Is this 50 Shades of Grey? What's
Bella.
going on here? And she was like, of course not. I told you I've never felt like this about anyone, not even close.
Yeah, and then 416, the last page, she's like, "Your human instincts. Well, do you find me attractive?" And he's like, "I may not be human, but I am a man." I'm like,
Period. Period and word.
"You were sure you were man?" And then she says, "I love you."
She does. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Then 19 is when, 19 is when they go to the house.
They go to the house. Oh, okay. My abs are hurting. Okay, they're sore. So he said, I wondered, it starts off with, I wonder if I would ever spend a night happier than this one. I doubted it. Oh my goodness.
Shut up, Edward! you're gonna have
as
quite
she
a happy
slept,
night.
Bella told me again and again that she loved me. So she was sleep talking and saying that she loved him. Imagine just like sleeping all night and all you're saying is, I love you.
I know.
So this is where, when does he ask her if they can? Oh, he goes home first to tell them like, yeah, I'm gonna bring Bella over, and Rose. This is when him and Rose have that conversation. Yeah, and he was like, Rose, can we talk? And she was like, so they end up coming to the agreement that like Rosalie's just not gonna be there when Bella goes over. She just, yeah. Even though he wants her to, she's like, no. And she says something. She says, I can't look at her. When I look at her, I can't see her as a person. I just see a waist. And I'm like, Rosalie, no.
Rosalie.
But she says, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound so cruel. I can't watch her do this. So like, he even tells her, cause he's like, I'm not gonna let it happen. And she was like, this is not your goal. He said, no, I want her to have everything. I won't take anything away from her, Rose. Do you understand? I won't hurt her that way. And she's like, but how do you see that working? It's a dangerous game. And she's like, I'll find a way to survive. He said, I'll find a way to survive after she goes, like after she dies. She said, there was something, what did she say? Where is it? Oh, but she said, I'm going to sound like an octogenarian now. She continued out loud, the faintest hint of levity suddenly in her voice. But you know kids these days, she smiled weakly. All about here and now. No thought for 5 years to the future, let alone 50. What will you do when she asks you to change her? I'll tell her why it's wrong, and I'll tell her everything she'll lose. And when she begs. So I'm like, dang. Little did Edward know that that's literally,
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with Rosalie in this because Rosalie, she's just all Rosalie is right. Like, you think that, and because she said she's all like, look, you're not up to my personal standards, but there's not a human man alive who can compare with you, and you know that. Kind of like, someday she'll want more than what I can give her, saying like, she like. Kind of, I guess what she's saying is that Bella would never grow bored of him. Yeah. Because it's all like you're giving her attention. She obviously she's not going to think of anybody else the way she thinks of you. Like you've already given her enough reason to want to be with you.
And then, so this is when Edward like tries to rationalize with her because she was like, I think it's dangerous, and he was like, so is your life not what you wanted? But in the last your life isn't what you wanted, but in the last 70 years or so, would you say you've had at least 5 years of pure happiness? And she started thinking about all the like best parts of her life and revolving around Emmett movie, like, and they were all like going through her head. And he said 10 years even, and she didn't answer. She was like, because she knew that he was right. And he said, let me have my 5 years, Rosalie. That's so sad. Dang.
It makes me wonder with Rose, because like Edward said that human memories fade, but Rosalie still has like a distinct memory of her human life, and I wonder if that's because of how upset she is that she was changed and how much she misses her human life. Because Edward was someone who, like, even though he hated what he was, he never was someone who kind of always complained about not being human. He kind of had to accept it. So I think that's maybe why his human memories faded so fast. But
because she still remembers hers like very well.
She remembers hers really well. So it's like, okay, maybe because she is so attached to her human life and she desires it, that's why she can't forget her human memories. Because she, in Eclipse, she remembered a lot of it. She remembered like her last everything. Couple months. Yeah.
And I wonder, probably because it maybe if the way, like you had said, like if someone's life was just kind of like boring or like lackluster, that's easier to forget. But something so like traumatic and like, well, first she had like an amazing life right before that traumatic event. Like she said that she was married. Happy. Yeah, she was happy. She
wanted to get married and she wanted to have babies. She wanted to grow old. She wanted to have what human life destined, where you're born, you live, you die. She did not expect to live frozen at the age of 18. So that's probably why she can still remember everything, is because she's so attached. Ow. Oh my god, my legs. Okay, there. So, and then he's still he begs her, and then she's like, I'm not sure what I can do, seeing everything I want out of my reach. It's too painful. And so, he knew that it would be painful, and, but he said, he's like, I know that her regret and sorrow wouldn't equal even a fraction of the anguish that was waiting for me, meaning no amount of pain will be close to what he will feel when Bella eventually like grows old and dies. Yeah. And it's like,
dang. Yeah, and yeah, at the end of that conversation, she was just like, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
Because that's when he tells her at the end, like, well, Bella's coming over.
Yeah, and then, she was like, I need more time than that, so then that's why she kind of left, was she's not ready to meet her yet. Yeah. And then I think he also changes his clothes, because I remember Bella being upset when she realizes he left in the night. And,
Yeah, she did. She was like, you left, and he was like, he said something about changing, or right?
Yeah.
He was like, well, I had to. Oh, and then it was so funny because she was like, oh, Charlie, he was like, he left an hour ago after reattaching your battery cables. I might add, I have to admit, I was disappointed. Is that really all it would take to stop you if you were determined to go? And she was like, pretty much, like, but also like same.
Oh, this is, where is it? Where's my favorite part? Oh, it's the, when, he's like breakfast time, and then she goes like, like this, and he goes like, why would you do that?
Oh yeah, she was like breakfast time, and she was like, like she thought that
he was gonna eat her, and he's like, that wasn't funny. He was like, why would you do that? And she's like, it was very funny, and you know it.
It was very funny.
But then the second thing that had me laughing, which also in Twilight, of course, had me laughing, but Edward's perspective of it had me crying of laughter, was when she gets her breakfast and she sits down and she's like, can I get you anything? He's like, please just eat.
Yeah. He's just like, just leave it. Don't even think about it.
Like, this is the Bella we deserved in the movies.
It really is. Because she's so funny and so sassy and, like, she has a personality.
Yeah.
But so then she eats her cereal very quickly. And then, they end up going to... Oh, she changes, right?
Yeah. Yes, and this is where... the world held their breath, because we were like, we're gonna find out about the khaki skirt, and then it wasn't the khaki skirt.
It wasn't about the khaki skirt. It was about the shirt.
It It was the shirt. And I was like, I about threw the book. I was like, no. I was like, Stephanie Meyer saw those memes, and she was like, I'm not going to give you what you want.
Yeah, I know. But it makes sense why it would be about the shirt, because it was, like, kind of form-fitted. Like, it had, like, a low-cut back, kind of. And so, like, just everything about, like, the shirt made him feel things.
I know, and I was like, ah!
So then, they end up going to, oh, he asked her about the food. He was like, is that any good? She was like, he was like, it doesn't look very appetizing. She says, well, it's no irritable grizzly.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and then she faints when, they kiss. Because he gets angry. He's all like, what am I going to do with you? Yesterday I kissed you and you attacked me. Today you pass out.
Yes, that's where it is. Yeah, she was like, yesterday you attacked me. Today you pass out. Oh. Because she wasn't breathing, right? Because she was like holding her breath.
Exactly.
Jeez, Bella. You have to breathe. They go to the house. Very cute. I'm like, where am I? Hold on.
Oh, this is... I love Esme's thoughts the entire time.
Yes. Like,
where she's like, I adore her.
Yeah. And then, so she meets the family. Alice obviously was like, you do smell nice. I've never noticed before.
No, but Alice kisses her cheek, and I wanted that in the movie.
It's
they
so
couldn't
cute.
let us have it.
Also, she just, Alice also just, like, runs to her. Like, in a non-human way. She, like, runs to her and, like, hugs.
She, like, stops, she runs, flashes, stops, and then kisses her cheek, and I'm like,
iconic.
You know, they couldn't do that. They couldn't because they would feed into my Bella x Alice shipper.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, Esme, she's perfect. Oh, my goodness. I love that. So then they're talking, then this is where we kind of get the little hint that there's gonna be some visitors. And then, but Carlisle kind of made it seem like, made it seem like there's not gonna be a problem because Alice didn't see anything happening, right?
Yeah.
Not
Esme, yet. It wasn't. Yeah.
Esme's so cute. She was like, that has Edward showed you that he could play? Because she asked about the piano, and she was like, oh no, like, but she said, I know, but I should have guessed. And then she was like, what does she mean? And then Edward was like, Edward can do everything, right? And then Esme said, I hope you haven't been showing off. It's rude. Love her. So then Esme was like, he looks so happy. I've never seen him this way. Thank goodness he found her at last. Oh my goodness.
Esme is the number one Bella Edward shipper.
Oh yeah, she is Team Edward 100%.
Yes.
So then Edward plays her the song, and then while he's playing her the song, they all like disappear.
Oh, okay. I had to take a okay. I mean, I know what we're about to discuss with him playing because she cries.
She cries.
And then he swallows her tear. Ew! Disgusting. I'm sorry, be warned if you're a headphone user. That is...
What's interesting?
The most cringiest.
That's just like...
I love... Okay, I don't have words for that. I don't have words. Some people defend it. They're all like, but it was so that he could have a part of her. And I'm like, did my ex-boyfriend do that to me? No. I would have slapped him silly. Like...
Yeah, what was the reasoning for him for that? Because...
it's because...
Since
here,
his
I got it right here.
Can't absorb, like, liquid, so, like, it's just gonna stay there?
It said, where did I swear he said, I swallowed Bella's tear. Perhaps it would never leave my body after she left me. After all those lonely years had passed, maybe I'd always have this piece of her inside me. Edward, get out.
Someone's watching Bridgerton. I hear it. One of my sisters, or maybe my mom. Yeah, I don't. It's a little weird. Maybe we should try it. But then, like, I'm gonna ask my husband, like, can you just cry for me or something? But it's different because it's like my husband, so like it doesn't matter. But like she's sitting there at the piano, a single tear, and he just like that's it.
Oh God.
Jeez.
Then we get into Carlisle, and Bella is completely like amazed at how old Carlisle is.
Yeah.
Because when she asked about the cross, he's like early 1630s, and then
she thought that he
said
was
it belonged
a collector, and she was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he was like, "No, that's like from
that's Carlisle's dad."
Yeah.
And then she puts the pieces together, and is like, "How old?"
You know what's also interesting? That Carlisle remembers a lot of his past too.
He does. So,
and his was a pretty eventful past. You know, his father, like, the way that he was turned. So I wonder if that has something to do with it then. It seems to have.
Yeah. I mean, we can't say much for Alice. Like, we know Alice is through her going, looking at stuff and, like, other people kind of knowing because Alice, she doesn't remember her human life due to the electric shock. But maybe that's what it is. Like, it could be Edward we don't really know much of Edward's human life at all. He doesn't say anything. He kind of says it was average. So maybe that's also what it was.
It was kind of boring.
Yeah, whereas freaking Carlisle was a vampire hunter.
No, that was another reason why I was like that's why I think that there's other species because here in 445 it says he also believed very strongly in the reality of evil. He led hunts for witches, werewolves, and vampires. So I'm like, well, there's werewolves and vampires, so there has to be witches, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like talking to her about Carlisle's past here for a big part of this ending.
Yeah. And I think it's because he doesn't go much into because chapter 20 is Carlisle, but the thing is that it doesn't really go much into Carlisle's past because we kind of already know it.
Yeah.
It was explained really thoroughly in Twilight, but we get a glimpse of the story that we kind of already know. Just the dialogue really between the two, but it's in this chapter where we find out about a little bit more into Edward's past and what he was doing during the time he had rebelled. And this is a part that I find myself wanting to slap Edward because he's trying to justify what he did was wrong. And I'm like, no, you did the right thing.
You did the right thing, yeah.
Which, trigger warning, tell anyone listening who has, like, because it has to do with a child and it has to deal with attempted assault. So it's like, I don't know where to begin. Do you want to, like, start?
Yeah, what page does it start on? I'm like, that part was such a... So basically, from what I remember from it was that, you know, he had been going around and killing people who were, you know, assaulting women, you know, abusers, all that stuff,
murderers,
and so that was his like thing. He would like save these women, kill these men, and he said that he I think he was telling her something like that all of his killings were justified except for one, one that he kind of still struggled with because there was this guy, he was kind of homeless or something like that. Like he wasn't really like he wasn't like a typical guy. Like he was just kind of like a bum, but he would go and watch. He was like a peeping Tom, and he would watch this child, you know, from her window, all this stuff, and he would think very bad things about this. But then also, Edward said that there was times where his brain was telling him not to. So it was clear that this person had problems. I wouldn't even say probably like schizophrenia or something like that. Just because, you know, he said something about like it seemed like the guy was like talking to someone like in his brain, you know?
Yeah, it was. He kind of. Yeah, it was. He was in a conflicting situation because it's all like he desired it. He desired this thing he wanted to do, which is
But he
horrible,
knew it was
and
wrong.
he knew it was wrong, and but then he just couldn't help but think. And what happened, ultimately he made the decision to actually go into the girl's room.
Yeah.
So he made the decision to do it. Like, he was gonna do it, and he knew what he would have to do after what he had planned to do, because the girl was young. He was gonna have to kill her after he did what he did to her. And like, he knew where he would bring the child.
This is another part that I was a little surprised that Stephanie added.
Exactly. I was a little, because this had a lot of detail. I didn't think
we would get that.
This was going to have that much. Yeah. And then Edward immediately, like, before he could touch the girl who was sleeping, he grabs him, he takes him out to the alley, and then the reason why he felt like what he did was wrong was because it's like the guy looked relieved that someone had stopped him, but then he killed him anyway. Yeah. So it's like Edward still kind of says that it was not like it wasn't justified. Like but I'm like, no,
like I think he did the right thing in all the situations.
If he didn't do that, then who was to say what was going to happen? Like, if he would have just grabbed him, taken to the alley, and then left him, who's to say the guy wouldn't have went back and tried again?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was justified.
Yeah.
This whole time I'm yelling at him.
We learn more about the Volturi. Bella learns about the Volturi, because we know about the Volturi, but Bella learns about the Volturi. She talks about Aro, Marcus, and Caius, because she's looking at the iconic painting that we know of. And then that's like kind of like the ending of it. She was like, but, you know, Carlisle was lonely, so he decided to come to America to, you know, make a family.
Yeah.
And then that's when he said, and so we've come full circle. And this is when it gets into the whole, like, his past and all that stuff. Which is interesting that he tells her in this book, and he doesn't tell her, because in the movie he tells her about all of this in Breaking Down Part 1.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, that's a little late to the game, buddy. Like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But even then, like, Bella in the movie in Breaking Down Part 1 was like, you did what you had to do. Like, those men were monsters. Like, you know?
Yeah.
But he just can't, like, live, like, he can't live with that.
Yeah. He just, And then,
So actually, he didn't take the guy to the alley. He grabbed him by the neck and leaped up to the roof 3 stories up. So they were all on the roof. Gotcha. He was on the roof. Which is like, okay, Batman. Like...
Yeah. And
they go to his room.
She sees all his CDs.
I loved this part where they put the CD on, or they're like looking at the CDs, and then she asked him how it's organized. Like, okay, Bella, you're such a nerd, but also like love it, right? He says by year and then personal preference. And then they're just he's like, I was prepared to feel relieved, having, you know, about everything, not needing to keep secrets from you, but I didn't expect to feel more than that. I like it. It makes me happy. And she said, I'm glad. And then, and then he does another Hades Persephone reference. He says, a flicker of unease twisted my expression. I thought of pomegranate seeds for the first time in a while. It felt right to have her here, but, well, was that just my selfishness binding me? Nothing had scared her away from me. But that didn't mean that she shouldn't be frightened. She'd always been too brave for her own good. And she was like, you're still waiting for the running and screaming, aren't you? And she said, but you're not really as scary as you think you are. I don't find you scary at all, actually. And then he says, you really shouldn't have said that. And then he said she asked to see me hunt, after all. So then he coiled into a parody of actual hunting stance, a loose, playful version, exposing even more of his teeth. He growled softly. It was almost a purr. And she was like, she started to back away, though there was no real fear on her face. So she was like smiling and like backing up. She didn't look afraid. She did look a little afraid that she was about to become the butt of her own joke. And she said, "You wouldn't." And he sprang to her and scooped her up in his arms. And then they like flew onto the sofa. And he was like, "You were saying." Like, I think it's so cute. Like, we needed to see stuff like that.
I know.
And then she was like that she tried to catch her breath and she put that you are a very, very terrifying monster. And he grinned and said, "Much better." It's so cute.
And then I love this part with Alice coming in saying, "It sounded like you were having Bella for lunch. I mean, wanted to come and see if you would share."
Oh yes, and then and then what he said, "Sorry, I don't believe I have enough to spare." Oh my goodness.
And then we get the ball game.
So then this is when they're talking about going, and they asked Bella if she wanted to go, and she was like, "Okay." And then they explained why they need thunder, right? They were like, "Well, we need thunder, right?" And then she was like, what will we be playing?" She was like, "You will be watching. We will be playing baseball." And she said, "Vampires like baseball." And that's when we get it's the American pastime. And then that's the end of chapter 20. We're like 2/3 of a way probably now.
Yeah, and this is where
that's the bit. This last 10 chapters are going to be a big chunk to kind of go through because they are where all the action happens, really.
Yeah.
So, dang.
But we did it. That's the end of episode 11.
Yes, episode 11. So this episode is on February 1st. So you can expect episode 12 on February 8th, and then episode 13, which would be our last one for the Midnight Sun series, on February 15th. But yeah, so then you're gonna get videos for literally the next 5 weeks. The next 4 weeks you'll be getting a video every Monday. We just figured it was time to start talking about Midnight Sun, and we've been kind of holding it off because we were like, we need to give people time to get the book, to read it, all that stuff. So that is why we are discussing Midnight Sun now. And oh my goodness, I just can't even. Jeez. By the time that this episode is uploaded on February 1st, we will also today our other podcast has an episode that goes out today, February 1st. It's called the Very Eerie, Extremely Wicked, and Quite Spooky podcast on Spotify. It's a mystery, crime, conspiracy theory, true crime, murderers, cults, all that stuff. Our second episode for that podcast comes out today. We'll be talking about the Manson family. So if you
may have heard of it,
maybe have not, but I mean, it's a pretty well-known thing. So if you want to go chat with us, you listen to us chat over there, definitely check that out. Go follow us on all of our social medias. We have TikTok and Instagram at the Bite Podcast RR. On our Instagram, you can follow along with anything. We'll post updates. We'll post sneak peeks sometimes on there as well. We do lives. We haven't done a live in a little bit because we've been super busy, but we try to do a live every time we upload, but we've been busy. So, but if you ever were to catch a live, it would be on there because we can't go live on TikTok together. Yeah. But yeah, so that is it for this episode. But any final thoughts on? I'm just ready to get into all the action.
Yeah, I'm just this section was a bit, nostalgic because we got the meadow scene, we've got her going to see the Cullens, but I'm excited for the next bit because especially I think the baseball scene from Edward's point of view was so good, so I cannot wait to talk about
it's also some stuff that we have, like the next part is stuff that we didn't get to see, so it's new. It's new content for us.
Yes.
So that's exciting. But that is it. That's the end of this episode, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.